I am going to call this March 12th, 2025 board meeting of the Teton County School Board Trustees. Back to order. Do I have a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, mission, vision, and statement. Let's see. Trustee Abrams, do you want to read something from there?
I would be delighted. Mission statement. Our mission is to ensure that all students have the foundation for success and are challenged to reach their full potential.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Approval of the agenda.
Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. All right. I just quickly, because we just exited executive session. And I just wanted to make a general public statement that I know that there is some legislation that has coming out of Cheyenne that has caused some concern and is going to change some policies within the school district. And as a board, we are working on those under security and safety, which is a lot, we keep that under wraps. There will be some policies that will be coming forward next month that the public can review. And we will probably have some discussion then. So I wanted to assure the public that we are on top of it and we are doing the best we can. And we'll let you know how that goes. Thank you. All right, and we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Trustees, I have a number of exciting celebrations. First off, today we had a surprise celebration that we couldn't really announce, but we have a Milliken educator winner, and Colin Binko was recognized by the Milliken Family Foundation today in the assembly, and it was just awesome. He's an incredible educator, as are many of our staff. So that was a huge celebration. And Colin is one of only 42 in the country and the only one in Wyoming recognized. So pretty exciting. Next, I'd like to ask Mike Hansen to come up and recognize some of our recent champions.
Okay, Superintendent Chapman, Madam Chair, trustees, thank you for the opportunity to recognize some of our winter sports team champions this year. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our coaches because they're going to be able to speak to their teams better than I will. So if I can get Andrew Siegel on this girls Nordic team.
Hello, it's an honor to be here. As anyone who's ever tried the sport knows, Nordic skiing is really hard, maybe among the hardest, most demanding sports. I don't know, would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. And so in order to be successful in the sport, you got to be really tough, you got to be gritty, and I think you also have to love to do it. You got to love to ski race. And so on the day that this team won in Laramie, it was all on display. So the grittiness was there. You could see it in their faces, the toughness, and also the love of the sport and the love of skiing. So very proud moment as a coach and as a team. Thank you.
Will you introduce them, please?
Yeah. So maybe you could introduce yourselves and say your grade.
I'm Gigi Mahood, and this is my third year of Nordic, and I'm a senior.
I'm Tirza Ellis. I'm a freshman, and this is my first year. I'm Oscar Renee. This is my fourth year of Nordic, and I'm a junior. I'm Emmeline Shopshrine. This is my first year of Nordic, and I'm a sophomore. My name is Anna Gotham. I'm a freshman, and this is my name is Aubrey Mahestis. It's my third year of Nordic, and I'm a junior.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And now I'm going to introduce Coach Ryan Bell. Coach Bell, if you want to come in here, and a student who you saw last year at this time as well. Coach Bell.
Thank you for having us here. Again, it's an honor. It's a real honor for me to be standing next to this fine young woman from Jackson Hole High School, Ty McBride, who ended up this last 2 weeks ago in Casper, took home her second state title in wrestling. And I know that the Nordic coach said that Nordic's a pretty tough sport. Obviously, it's not wrestling. The grit and determination that it takes in that sport is, I think, second to none. And this young lady, her attributes are amazing. And as you can tell, Ty is in a sling because she finished the season with a torn labrum and a partially torn rotator cuff.
Oh my gosh.
But still went out and competed. At the state tournament, not one girl made it to the second period with Ty. That shows you the dominance of Ty McBride. I went back and looked at her record. When she was a freshman, there was no girls division. She ended up in her high school career 68-8, 7 of those losses coming to boys, 1 to a girl. That's dominance. This is a special young lady, and it makes me proud to be a Bronc and be proud to be in her presence. So with that, I present to you Ty McBride, state champion. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next, before we have our AVID presentation, I'd like to ask Shannon Borrego from Jacksonville High School to come up and make a special presentation for us.
Thank you. This is Diana Castilla Trejo, and I brought work along with her so you guys could see the work that was honored. Hold that. So Diana is an Art 1 student, and one of the things I think I try to express to all the kids is it doesn't matter where you sit. It only matters what you strive to get, and Diana's represented that in art time and time again with her work. This is one of our first projects, was the portrait project, and I submitted it to a national competition for the National Arts Education Association. And out of, I think they almost 2,500 works, they selected 83 to acknowledge and put on a national exhibit. And so Diana received that honor. So I just wanted to.
Is it a self-portrait?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. She took her lit herself up and took her photo. But yeah. So I wanted to honor her here.
Congratulations.
Back for it. We're going to try to frame this and hang it in the school for a bit. And then I think Abbott's going to be following us, right?
Yeah. Come on up. Thank you.
Diana's also
Congratulations.
Diana's also an avid student. We're really proud of her and all her accomplishments as well.
Come on up, guys. Loud and proud. Come on, come on. Chairwoman. It sounds a little strange, but chairman seems fine. So, trustees, Chairman Carlin, Anitra Jensen, coordinator of the AVID program this year in conjunction with Julie Nash. And I have to tell you that it is one of the best new jobs I have ever taken on. It is something that I am passionate about and a firm believer in, to the point of going on an overnight trip with 33 high school kids. This is an elementary person. I'm intimidated by kids taller than me. They all are. But it was the most delightful experience taking them to my alma mater, Utah State University, going with them to 3 other colleges in the state of Utah and helping them see what's available for them, the doors that are going to be thrown wide open. Today we are doing a presentation about the AVID program, and I'd like to introduce Shauna Earl. Shauna is one of the 2 high school AVID teachers, and she is going to take it from there.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight about AVID. It's really a pleasure, and these students are here by choice, and I really appreciate their time and taking it out to tell you what really matters to them. AVID makes up about 10% of our high school population. And this year we will have 25 graduating seniors. And if we look at the trends that AVID is having, we're going to have a total of 54 graduates in the last 3 years come out of AVID. And of those, 44 of them are first generation students. And so we really want to take the time to recognize that these students are kind of blazing their own trail by the things that they're learning in AVID. Just making sure this works.
Andrea is the one.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. So Avid's mission is to close achievement gaps. And those can be learning, those can be economic, those can be many different things. And it's to close that gap for those students that feel that they really want to go and progress in their education, but they don't necessarily have all the support or tools. It's a systematic approach that goes school and district wide. We are just using it as an elective at the high school. And we are really proud to see the results that are coming from that. The next slide shows that our students have this year chosen and been accepted, and that's actually wrong. It's 133 schools that they've been accepted to. Of those, 15 of them are community colleges, but we want to really focus on the fact that they're good fit schools. They fit them academically, they fit them socially, and then they fit them financially as well, because we don't want to send them to a place where they can't afford to get their education. Along with that, our seniors are at $3,019,000 in scholarships offered from these schools. Include Hathaway, and Hathaway will have an additional $141,000 tacked on to that total. The seniors have a goal of reaching 5 million in scholarships to try and help them get to college. Almost every single student in the Avid program is paying for their own college. And so that's a big drive for them to figure out how to pay for it and to apply for those scholarships. So those are our colleges. Next, Scott had asked me to just let you guys know from the elementary school at JES and then the middle school, how it progresses. And at the elementary school, we really look at organization and like folders and how to keep those things all separate and going. At the middle school, we also continue that, and we do it along with reading strategies. And we use a thing called scholar groups where they look deeper into reading and they question it within groups. The freshman level, we look at executive functioning really deeply, and we start what's called TRFs. And TRFs are things that they have questions in their class so that they can progress into harder level classes. It increases their rigor, and they work on those things together. They read a book in freshman year and sophomore year, and all throughout all 4 years, they're writing essays as they go along that could be used for either college or for scholarships. So they are building up that portfolio. Sophomores start into the ACT prep and the score, and then juniors really get into the ACT tutorials, and we start a lot of financial education and financial literacy on up into the senior year, where we help them with their Common App, score, FAFSA, all those things. And so just to give you a progression, the next slide has our curriculum on it, and I won't go too deep into that. Everybody always says, what's Avid? And we really focus on what students need, and that is student agency. We talk about their own path and advocating for themselves. They need opportunity knowledge, and then they need rigorous academic preparedness. And so that's what the students need, and then it shows what we as educators should do to support that. And so this is just the Avid curriculum, and we focus mainly on writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. The next slide is so that I can introduce all of our students. Diana just chose to join us, and we were glad she's being honored for her art. We're going to start with Keaton. Keaton is a student. She's had many personal challenges, and she has powered through those as a scholar. And she has been accepted to one of her favorite schools. And she has also received from those schools that she's been accepted to over $400,000 in scholarships offered. And so I was just going to give Keaton a chance to talk about Avid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keaton Chamberlain. You know me. I joined Avid my freshman year, and I truly didn't realize how much I would need it. we started with organization, and I thought, you know what, I'm an organized student. I don't really need to be here if this is what it's about. And my counselor, when I tried to get out of the class, she told me, no, you're staying in the class. I'm not letting you leave. So I had to stay for the next 3 years, but it was honestly one of the best things that happened to me. I wouldn't be here in front of you all today doing great things academically and in my extracurriculars if it weren't for Avid. My freshman and sophomore year, I don't want to get emotional, but I was grieving a mother who is still alive. All while trying to help my grandma afford rent and groceries. And if that's not enough, I still had to juggle school. I had no idea how I was going to get to college, let alone afford college, trying to support myself and my grandmother. And now, because of Avid and Miss Earl's help, I get to go to college, excited about having a higher education. And while I don't still have school fully covered, excuse me, Avid has taught me financial literacy in a way that will keep me from drowning in debt for the next 4 years while I get a higher education. Yes, my story is unique, but not rare. Avid is full of kids who are working 10 times as hard just to get where everyone else is. Whether it's financially, educationally, or anything in between, they have a setback. With Avid, this setback that would normally feel like a wall between them and a goal becomes a small step or two to their goals. College flags are everywhere in our room. In our Avid classroom, we have them all up, lined against the wall. We really don't have room for more acceptances. We're gonna have to start stacking them. We, like Miss Earl said, have over 3 million scholarships in total, not including ones from our local scholarship programs. And I want to reiterate, I recently joined a meeting at Teton Science Schools with many teachers from the high school and other schools around the district. And we talked about being in a classroom that provides students with a sufficient learning experience. And one of the most important things to me was to have a teacher consistently for 4 years that you have the chance to build a relationship with, that you can fully trust with your life in general. A teacher that can advocate for you to get where you need to be is very important. And I think Avid provides that. It is not only an honor to share my experience in Avid with you all today, but a privilege that I genuinely believe more kids should have the opportunity to access.
Next up, we're going to have Louisa. Louisa is a National Honor Society student, and she's also the sister of an Avid graduate, and her sister is at Westminster College right now.
My name is Luisa Sartia Mejia, and I'm currently a junior at Jackson Hole High School. And I feel like Avid has been such an important part of my life because it's just helped me become comfortable in the place I'm learning and helped me gain the confidence to build a relationship with not only my peers, but with my teachers. Even in topics where I'm not totally comfortable in learning or like seems a little too hard to understand, I've gained the confidence to go in early, ask for help, or ask tutors from Avid and understand the topics I'm learning. It has provided extra time and resources I can use to do well in the part classes I'm participating. It has pushed me to try to do rigorous classes and extracurriculums that seem pretty hard to juggle.
Thank you, Louise. Louisa is a junior, and our next one is a sophomore. So we have a senior, 2 sophomores, and a junior. And German is one of our rising athletes and scholars, and he just wanted to talk a little bit about what he's getting out of this year too.
Yeah, I'm German Zampa. I don't think I know many of you, but I think for me, Avid has been more than a class and more than an elective. It's been like a chance to build my future or build the stage for my future. And I think the biggest thing I've gotten out of Avid is just that discipline and that commitment, not only academically, but athletically. I think It helped me gain a lot of confidence, and then obviously gave me that commitment that I think I really need if I want to continue playing sports in like college or higher levels. But it doesn't just leave me with athletics. I think it doesn't stop there because, like I said, it prepares you both academically and extracurricularly, and I think it's really helped me. Another thing I got, or that I keep getting from Avid, and I hope to keep getting, is healthy ego, which is something that does not involve arrogance or like I'm the best. Just like whenever I need it, it's there. Also academically, athletically, at home, and with my relationships. I want to build on what Keaton said about having a teacher consistently for 4 years. I think is very important, and I think not only Miss Earl but Miss Wetzel too have done just an amazing job. And I mean, I'm only on my second year of high school, so I can't see what's to come, but I'm very excited for it. And it's like I said, not only a class, it's a place where you can come and learn and get a lot of strategies and nurture them that you can use in your future.
I wanted to thank you guys for this time to showcase Avid. We have not done this yet, at least as far as I've been here. And also, you need to know that a part of our Avid program is that these guys are required to have 54 volunteer hours before they graduate as a part of the Avid program. So they're also giving back to their community in big ways. And so I couldn't be more proud to have them standing up here with me, and just they do the work. So I'm glad that they came to talk about Avid. So thank you for the time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I want to acknowledge those students for their bravery and for the vulnerability of where they place themselves to stand up in public and share their stories. Congratulations. That'll carry you far.
Thank you. All right, that was great. District leaders report.
We'd be happy to answer any questions, although it's hard to top what we've already shared today. If there are any questions for the district leaders, we're happy to answer them.
Any questions? All right, if there aren't any questions, we can move on to reports and items for discussion. So we'll start with the student school board member report.
Hello, everybody. So we really wanted to get into the self-on curriculum plan progress, which we touched on before. We told you guys we'd have more updates coming into this meeting. We went out and we reached out to computer teachers within the district, gaining feedback on what I'm about to show you guys. And it's still a work in progress, but we're really proud of where we are so far, and excited to continue going into it. So here's one of the early on stages of the curriculum where we understand that kids want some sort of game, something that gets them up and moving, because having them sit down and listen to a homeroom teacher for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, getting a curriculum plan on cell phones, whether they have it or not, won't be the most engaging for them. So we want to incorporate some sort of activities that'll get them up and moving, so that they're not just learning sitting down and listening. We also want to add other games into it. However, this is just the first edition of the games. And then moving on to the productivity aspect for the cell-phone curriculum plan. This idea is they go onto their electronics, they go into the settings, and they see the screen time that they are having. They really get pushed to see what they're actually doing on their cell phones. On there, we have them going into what apps they're using, how many hours they're using it for. If they're really just using the messages app to call their parents and text them like they tell us, or if they're really using it for social media, games, YouTube, Netflix. But we want them discussing in small groups. We want them communicating with their peers about it, and we want to push some sort of bravery and confidence that that they can talk about it, and it's not something that you're just supposed to keep behind closed doors, but be open with it. And hope that they share out to the class as well after discussing in the small groups. And then a really important topic, the cyberbullying topic, which I'm sure we all have a pretty good understanding of what cyberbullying is, but also give this part of the curriculum will give the students the time to think in their heads about what is going on with that. Especially this part, we don't have them expected to share out to the class. It's a really it's a reflective time. Think about what have they done that could have been, maybe they did a cyberbullying activity, or were they cyberbullied themselves, and really reflect on those experiences. And there is a point in time where they can share out if they're brave. We're hoping that maybe a teacher can share some sort of story, really get the ice broken a little bit, so that the students feel comfortable sharing any experiences, especially if they're not fun ones. I mean, no one really likes to talk about an experience where they weren't put in the best light, but some sort of ice broken will be awesome. And then the hope and expectation is that maybe one kid will share after the teacher, and then another and another, and a conversation can get started about it, and change can start to happen. But we want to utilize multiple forms of communication, whether it's in their heads, talking into a class, in a small group, during a game, really try and hit all the different bases of a curriculum plan. And then lastly, we have a pledge that we want them, and it's a symbolic thing. The pledge is the idea that they'll understand what they're doing on their cell phones or their technology, their smartwatches or computers. And an idea that we have with the pledge is after they say this, there's some sort of banner that they can write saying like, I signed the pledge, regarding cell phones and technology. Then that can be put up in the computer classrooms, or it can be put up in some sort of homeroom, so everyone can try and keep each other accountable and see how everyone is doing it. Because I believe it was Trustee Abrams that brought up, if one person is willing to put down their phone, it won't change many. But if a whole room will do it, people may feel more comfortable. And so if they see their friends putting their phones down and signing this pledge, the hope is that more will follow. Yeah, and then here's the table of contents that we have. We'll go over communication, responsibility, productivity, cyberbullying, safety, social media, and then go over the pledge. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. And I'm working on the infographics. So I've been working on parent and student infographics, so that way both people of the household, both groups of that household kind of have access to that, and they can hold each other accountable. To make these infographics, I've gone to websites and resources that share the research that has already been done regarding cell phones. And in order to make the infographics accessible to the parents and the kids whose first language is Spanish, I have reached out to Mrs. Lopez at the high school to help me translate these accurately. And she actually did finish them today. I just wasn't able to get them printed out for you all. Our next lunch focus group meeting is after spring break, and I also plan to make a infographic regarding healthy nutritional choices for parents and kids as well. I've sent the whole lunch focus group emails with some responses back, so I started working on those a couple weeks ago, and I'll run it by the focus group at our next meeting. The next step is to get the infographics out to students and parents. So I'll begin to contact principals and counselors at all of the schools, ensuring that both parties have access to them. And just so you guys can take a look at the infographics that I've created, they kind of tell parents and students whether or not they have a social media addiction, how much time they spend on their phone and how much time is being wasted on their phone. And I'm so sorry. And kind of how to fix that problem of wasting their life away on a screen. Yeah.
Doom scrolling?
Doom scrolling. I got asked a question about that already today. It's basically when you are on your phone for hours and hours, just endless scrolling, when you could be doing something productive with your time. That's doom scrolling.
Never heard that.
Yes, Trustee.
I have a bizarre question, just because my mind thinks this way.
Yeah.
Is there a way to have that pledge pop up on the phone after 30 minutes of screen time, or is there a way to do that?
I'm sure there's an app out there somewhere. I know there's plenty of apps that regulate screen times, whether it's in the settings of iPhones. I believe there's another app that's called Opal, I believe, that I see some people in our high school using. But there's got to be something out there that we can research and find.
Colin, just tell my daughter. Okay?
All right.
That's all. No, I just, and maybe you want to have a challenge in the classroom, like check at the end of the week who's got the fewest hours. If I don't know, just I love this whole thing. Great job.
And then really quickly, I wanted to speak on some of the teacher feedback that I've been receiving. So I've reached out to every computer teacher as well as library teacher in the district. I've received responses from probably about half of them so far. Many of them are very excited about this project and are really excited to start incorporating it into their own curriculums once we complete it. Many say that they're going to start teaching it to their 5th graders before they head into middle school. They feel like that will be the most effective way to hopefully give them the tools before entering obviously a brand new school and environment. We have received feedback on some word choice. One word being like not every elementary student will understand the word consensus. So making sure everything makes sense to very young elementary school students. And then some teachers already have their own curriculum plan that they're using, and they have sent me a bunch of different websites and things that they are basing their lessons off of that we can hopefully kind of add a little more and look at, but they're not necessarily thinking they're going to use our curriculum, but hopefully once we finish it and add a little bit more, they will start using it. So
Any more questions or comments?
I do, Madam Chair. Fabulous work. Thank you. I'm thrilled that you've created this content. I'm curious for Superintendent Chapman and for the board, is this information that we should help send out via weekly newsletters, other communication methods to parents? I don't know what the process is. That does it need to be approved or what? Or is this like, hey, we're in it and let's support what the student board has done and get the word out.
We, Trustee Abrams, we have absolute ways of getting this information out to our families and the students. When the student school board members were presenting, the students were so enthusiastic about it, and the table of contents that you all put together, and it's so professionally done. I think this is really impressive, and it'll be exciting to send it out. And I think other districts are going to be like, wait, students did this? Or students? Yes, it's really well done. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much for sharing this and working so hard on this. It's terrific.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, legislative update. Trustee Scarlett.
Madam Chairman, the sweetest words we could have heard were uttered, was it last week or the week before? This session is adjourned. So recalibration, they did pass the bill to start the recalibration process. This is required every 5 years to recalibrate the school funding model. For the first time, the committee is equally split between 5 senators and 5 representatives. The good news is Representative Mike Yin, who represents the town of Jackson, is one of the representatives that has been appointed to that committee. It's going to be, I would say the majority of the committee is intent on cutting spending on schools. So keeping an eye out and keeping the letters going, especially when it comes to the regional cost, the RCA, regional cost adjustment, is going to be important. The first meeting I learned begins April 23rd in the lovely town of Cheyenne. So April 23rd and 24th will be the initial meetings of the recalibration, and then continue on every month through the summer. Let's see, other big ones. Senate File 72, the Summer Vacation Preservation Act. That died in the House based on eroding local. They didn't want to erode local control. So we can go back to having 5 and 6 month debates about our calendar starting soon. Senate File 162, taking the teacher's salaries and benefits out of the block grant, that also died. We are now able to increase our cash reserves from 15% to 30%. But seeing how we manage our books, I don't think we'll ever get to 30% cash reserves of our total budget. Primarily just because that's what it is, and we're actually generating so much revenue locally that we should be okay. House Bill 199, the steamboat, whatever, it's the voucher bill, $7,000. It did pass, and they did add a means test where for pre-K. So, but for K through 12 is $7,000 voucher per student if you decide you want to enroll your student in homeschool or in a private school outside of public. There's no accountability, with zero accountability. Senate File 98, the partisan school bill. Mike Yin and Andrew Byron were successfully at planting some seeds on that one, and our school boards will remain independent of partisan politics. Thanks to Mike Yin and Andrew Byron. They did a great job there. And then, as you mentioned at the very start, House Bill 172 did pass, and we will continue to work on that and have more to say in the coming months. So, to my summation of the, I guess I should compliment Superintendent Chapman, who rallied and went down to Cheyenne on the last minute to testify on House Bill 172 on behalf of the teachers and students of Teton County, and all of us representing our views. She did an excellent job. I was there. I also testified that this is an unfunded mandate, and there will be some additional budgetary things we'll have to discuss, but we'll do that going forward. And then to sum things up, the 68th legislative motto, I came up with 2 mottos for them. The first motto that I came up with is, we have solutions for yet to be determined problems. And the second motto was, we fight federal overreach by stripping our local communities of their control. So with that, any questions?
Any questions for Trustee Scarlett?
Thank you for going down there.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for your dedication. It was you spent a lot of time paying attention and thinking, and we appreciate it.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Trustee Scarlett, I have not really understood the system for charter schools. When the charter school gets going, it will be funded by state funding. And then this $7,000 Steamboat Scholarship is in addition to that?
No. The public charter schools, $7,000 cannot go towards that.
Is what?
I do not believe the $7,000 voucher can go to a charter school. It is only for a private institution.
Or homeschool.
Or homeschool curriculum. The public, you brought up a good point, Madam Chair. You have to remind me, that there was, last year they passed, they could increase the number of public charters from 3 to 4. And then did they lift the cap off of it?
They did not.
So that one stayed, but was interesting. Public charters, unlike public schools, they have an unelected board that controls state dollars with no accountability. And so there's no transparency. And so they just give them the money. And they're also finding that these schools are not having troubles getting students.
Surprise.
But I imagine in the next year they will lift the cap off and any community can go through that new charter authorizing system. Am I missing anything there, Dr. Chapman?
And then the addition to that scholarship was the $7,000 for early childhood support for families that make less than
250%.
250%, which I think is $80,000 for a family of 4.
Actually, it's probably a good thing. Oh, and then they cut mental health fund.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier.
Sounds crazy. Somebody had to say it.
Anything else?
Do you want a quick update on the Mercer study?
Yes.
We met, Trustee Bosch, Trustee Dornan, and I joined Dr. Chapman and others all afternoon with the school facilities, not commission, the school construction department, state construction department, school facilities division. And we've all received a copy of that initial Mercer with the very simple solutions that he pointed out very eloquently. They realized quickly that some of their data was wrong, and they are working to address some of that. And we will reconvene at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm not sure if Trustee Bosch or Trustee Dornan have any other summaries.
No, I just don't know what they've been doing. And I'm sorry, numbers were, I'm hoping that they will work with us to at least give us their formula so that we can present information on projected students so that the people that weren't there, board members that weren't there can understand is that they didn't get our counts right just for historically. In one big case, they were off by 100 students. And then their projections are that our student population is going to basically drop off to the tune of one year or one grouping of 5 years to the tune of 28% that's going to drop off. And so when asked about what the formula was, I don't want to, the guy that was there didn't know. He's going to get us information and then communicate with us so that we can help them understand how we work here, how things are operating here. And hopefully we can get some numbers from the county to help us with that so that we can present that information so they can actually have a better projection than, the state's dropping off kids, so we're going to drop off kids here. So that was basically meaning enrollment's going to drop. So we'll see. But I will say the promising part was, Bill, you were there, Reed, was that when we looked at the actual summaries, they acknowledged a lot of the things we've been saying. Specifically that our assembly facility, the gym, is so inadequate, it's insane. And I mean, they've recognized, I mean, how many different things did they go through and say, we don't have enough, what was it, art space, we don't have, I mean, the locker rooms are insufficient. I mean, they're acknowledging all this. The question will be is, how long do we have to wait until they decide to actually do something? So we'll see. Maybe we can get those answers tomorrow and report them.
Thank you. Any other questions for the?
Or anything else to share on that? No.
You all did a great job. Mr. Jordan?
No, all I want to say is they were missing only two things. One, how many students we've had over the last few years and how many students we have now. And two, how many new houses we're going to be building very soon, and we'll have a lot more students. They're only missing those two things.
And for that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Oh, my God.
All right, well, thank you all for attending. Fiscal Management Committee report.
Madam Chairman, I'm gonna turn it straight over to Kristen, and she brought in a addition, which I think is good for us.
I did. So we did have our fiscal management committee, and we talked briefly about the original, it's the pre-renewal packet that is attached to the board meeting. And since then, we've also had our first steering committee meeting, and we received our updated renewal numbers from Cigna yesterday morning. So yesterday morning, we had a 3-hour meeting with our consultants to go through our renewal from Cigna. And then we had our first steering committee meeting last night. Andre, if you'll go to the new presentation that I sent. So each of you have a copy of this. I apologize to everyone in the room. This was just generated today based on some feedback from the steering committee and then follow-up conversations I've had. Overall, I think we received some good feedback from the steering committee, and that's where a lot of this information is going to come from, just illustrating what the process is, what the timeline is, why it always feels so rushed this time of year, and really where we're headed as a long-term goal. So the first piece of it is, we have to wait really until the legislative session is over, because we're never quite sure what our funding is going to look like for the next year until they've concluded. So in the House budget bill this year, they passed these ECAs, which are the external cost adjustments. And in our budget, so this builds into the block grant, but in our budget, we pay above model salary. You all know that. And so when we start looking at what does our budget look like for next year, our foundation guarantee next year was intended to be $55 million if nothing had changed in the budget. If we just went with what the model said last year, would have been $55 million. With the ECA, it adds about $3.2 million to our budget. So then when we start doing that analysis and looking at what those numbers look like, we go, okay, what's going to change for next year? And there's some organic things that change. There's some contracts that need to be renewed that are going to have some inflationary increases, one of which you have on the agenda later to approve. That's our cleaning contract. It's unrealistic for us to expect our contractors to always renew at the exact same rates that we had before, especially when we know we're facing very high rates of inflation. So you see the ECA, I'm sure it'll come up here in a second. You all can look at that front page. And then some of this is how we start to budget for next year. You'll see a step increase there, the tech refresh estimate, a health insurance estimate. Now that health insurance number 701 is based on the information that we received yesterday morning. And I'll go more in depth into that in a minute. The cleaning contract increase for next year, other compensation package adjustments that we'll be bringing before the board that we've already talked about in finance committee, that you'll have that draft compensation package in April. as well as the health insurance approval in April. So we built the compensation package based on what we're proposing for health insurance, and then that draft is posted. Then in April, approve health insurance, May approve the compensation package is usually how that calendar goes. And then additional teacher positions. We have every year we look at staffing and we look where we're understaffed. Over the last couple of years, we've put a lot of those resources into our K-5 programs to make sure that those buildings are fully staffed. And when I say fully staffed, I think it's near impossible to have a fully staffed school district. The resources are very slim, and it would be amazing if we could actually get to what would be considered a fully staffed model. But when we look at the numbers and we start to look at the comparability, which is an analysis we have to do for all of our federal funding, one of the places we need to focus those resources on this year is our high school. And we haven't allocated a lot of new teacher positions at the high school in recent years. So that's where most of those resources are going. And the administrative team is really looking at what those needs are. And the other big piece of that is, what can we get, right? We could need 3 math teachers, but we can post that and get no math applicants. So a lot of times what this is it's like, okay, well, we could use this, we could use this, we could use this. Let's post those positions and let's see what applicants we can get, so that then we can then evaluate and say, okay, this is how we can start building the schedule and filling those classes for next year. So that's a short little intro into how this process begins once the session is completed. On the next page, one of the questions that came out of the steering committee last night was, what does this look like, and why is that drop dead approval rate April 16th when we just got our renewal numbers yesterday? And I've highlighted the pieces of what that budget calendar looks like that pertain to that insurance renewal. We just received the renewal yesterday morning. We had our first steering committee meeting last night. As expected, insurance is a very personal thing for most staff. And so some of those meetings get a bit heated and a bit emotional. But overall, I would say we got some really good feedback in the meeting. So the April 16th, you can see what we're doing right now, the 12th through the 21st, we're doing the budget analysis that I just showed you. That goes deeper than what I just showed you, but we start talking really in depth about what those teaching positions look like. A lot of those positions have already been posted. I know people are starting to look through those applicants. What student supplies are we going to change for next year? As you all know, we have a pending tech refresh that we're trying to make sure that we can afford to move forward with. Potentially for approval in April, we'll see. We have those operational contract increases, and then what other operational needs might we need? We're very short-staffed in some of our operational departments, facilities, transportation, custodial. Even if we have funds available, sometimes we still can't staff those departments. So those are all the analysis that we're doing now. The spring break that we have often falls in a really tough time, and I think the fact that we have a 2-week spring break that falls right in this time period does make this process feel a bit more rushed. I'm not proposing we change that or any of those things.
No calendar.
Nope. I'm just that is part of what makes the process feel rushed, because we're rushing to try and have some of those steering committee meetings, get as much staff feedback as we possibly can, and then we have a 2-week spring break and we come back and we almost have to get that proposal for the board immediately. So then that proposal needs to be submitted to the board agenda by the 9th. That only gives us 3 days after spring break to really get all of that together. So our second steering committee meeting is on that Monday that we get back from spring break. And then we have finance committee on the next day to talk about some of that. The proposal will then be submitted to the board agenda for a vote on the 16th. Then from the 16th or 17th to the 25th, there is a portal that we have to build for our enrollment process. And we have open enrollment every year. And one of the reasons we have open enrollment every year and we force every employee to reelect, even if there are no changes, is because there's an ACA rule that says that you have to prove as an employer that you have offered health insurance to every single employee. So you either have to have an election or a denial documented to submit to ACA. So that's where this portal comes in and is very important. We have to have every employee go through this portal. And so to know that we may have some minor changes, we may have some major changes, it takes time to build out that portal. That happens from the 17th to the 25th. Then we have testing of that portal from the 26th to the 30th to make sure that when employees log into that, it's very clear. They don't accidentally elect things that they don't want to have, or that they do elect the things that they want to have. It's a process. Then May 1st, open enrollment begins. We like to have open enrollment open for 3 to 4 weeks. This year, given this schedule, we'll have it open for 3 weeks, closing May 23rd. Then from the 23rd to June 6th, we go through all of those elections and records and make sure that everything looks like it's supposed to. Reach out to employees and say, are you sure you wanted to do this? If you didn't, let's make sure it's right. There's a lot of those conversations that happen during that period. And then in June, this is something that a lot of people might not know. We pay out most of our teacher contracts through August. But what that means from a payroll standpoint is that everything in June for the June 25th payroll posts for this compensation package year. Everything that posts for the July payroll and the August payroll that we post in June is for next year's compensation package. And that's why we need that compensation package approval in May, so we can make sure we have those changes for those 2 payrolls that we post in June. And that's really looking like you're processing payroll 3 times in 1 month, which is why it's so important to get all of these pieces done in a timely manner so that Christine, our payroll person, can really post those and have them effectively done for the year end. So I hope that that helps in terms of walking through why this process is where it is, why these dates are in place, and why it's so important to stick to this calendar. Okay, now we'll move on to health insurance for this year, or this coming year. This is an analysis. So one of the things I like to do this time of year is go through, I only pull the most recent month's insurance totals. And the reason that I do that is because what we had in September could look very different than what we have today. So today is February is the most recent elections that we've had for insurance. So that's going to be, I take February and then I multiply that out by 12. So that I can get an accurate representation of what we have today. So our totals today, you can see we have medical, dental, vision, and our the HSA here is only the $2,100 one-time payment that we granted last year. That doesn't include the $34 in matching that we do on a monthly basis for those that elect it. But one of the 2 pieces for dental and vision, these are pieces that we don't talk about a lot, but these are fully paid dental and vision for all employees and their families. And it's such a small part of this pie. We don't usually talk a lot about that, but I wanted to include it here because it's not just medical. It's also dental, vision, and then obviously HSA. So when I look at what that looks like for this year, if we took February's totals, our total spent on insurance this year will be about $8.2 million, including that HSA contribution. This is going to come in lower than our budget number, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So with Cigna, our increase is 20.2%. I will tell you this started at 50.5%. And the reason for that is because right now, as of February, our claims are $2 million more than our paid premiums. We're outpacing our premiums by $2 million, and I do anticipate that that's how we'll end the year. I don't think it will get worse before the end of the year, but I also don't think it will get better. So when we start talking about what a renewal looks like, it's a tough year, and I'll talk a little bit about why. So go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about how we're funded for health insurance. So these are two separate pieces out of the model. I put them here together because it's what makes the most sense. Will you go to the right a little bit on this? So when the state looks at how we fund our health insurance, they get to this composite premium right here. So they take all of the, it's based on the state plan and then how many people are enrolled in each district in each category. And they create this formula. These are the state plan contribution rates. And then what they do is they get to this composite premium, and that's how much they fund you for your health insurance for the district. Now you take that number and multiply it by your total model funded FTEs. Our total model funded FTEs are 369.69. We have closer to 600, 650 employees in this district. Some of them are funded in other areas. This doesn't include our transportation department because it's calculated in a different way. But that's all we get. So let's go down to the next slide. So when we look at what our totals are this year, what our anticipated cost next year is $9.4 million. Our total increase to our actual cost for next year is $1.3 million if we accepted this renewal. Our total budget this year for health insurance was $8.7 million. We did realize some savings, about $500,000 in the year. And part of that is when we go out and we budget for health insurance, I'm budgeting on what our current population is, what our current elections are. So if there's fluctuations, let's say one year we have 500 people that elected family insurance. Next year it's 250. That creates a big swing in what this number looks like. And the only way that we can look at that is just what our actual data looks like. Over time, we'll be able to project out and say this is what our average election is. But until we find some stability within our plan, we're going on what we have right now. So that means that our actual increase to our budget next year will be more about the $700,000 range. And that's that number on that front page where I said 701. When we look at our total state funding for health insurance, that composite premium times the total number of funded FTEs gets us to $6.5 million. When you include your SPED and your transportation, which are reimbursable departments, it adds about another $1.5 million in insurance because those are calculated in a different way, which gets us to total state funding of about $8 million. So when we look at what that looks like for next year, we're significantly higher than what we're funded for health insurance. That being said, we've budgeted this year $8.7 million. The $700,000, that's where we start to look at, okay, what does our total overall budget look like? And can we afford the increase, still keeping premiums at no cost to employees? Next slide. I wanted to show you what the anticipated rates. The first column is the plan that we offer now. And those are our renewal rates for just the high deductible plan. When we spoke at the steering committee last night, these are still lower than a lot of our other school districts that are with WEPT or not with WEPT. And I believe that the process that we're going through is working to keep our rates low. That being said, we have a lot of staff that give feedback that they'd like to have the option, the high deductible and the traditional plan. So we don't yet have a bid for a traditional plan. I've gone out and asked for that. One of the changes that will happen, so when we go back to Cigna and we say we want a plan option that has a high deductible plan and a traditional plan, they don't know what mix is going to elect. So they're going to build in an additional 2% in those high deductible rates, which I haven't done here, but they will do that. So if we were to offer a traditional plan, this is what those employee rates would look like over on the far right. Still no cost high deductible plan for employees. The traditional plan rates would be about $500 for a single, about $1,000 for a family for a traditional plan. over the course of 12 months, you see that's what their annual premium would be. We've had a lot of conversations about this. So for those employees that would prefer to have a traditional plan, this is a fixed cost. This is money out the door if you elect this plan. If you're on a high deductible plan and you take that money that you would spend in those premiums and you set it aside and you put it into a savings account or an HSA account once if you hit your maximum, that is money they get to keep if they don't have any events. If they never use their insurance, the high deductible plan costs them nothing. If they never use their insurance, the traditional plan costs the family $11,000 a year. This does not make sense. Go to the next slide. So when we actually start looking at, okay, well, what if somebody does max out their plan? What if they do have a traumatic year? When we start going through this, the total out of pocket, if you have a plan for one person, so if one person maxes out their total plan on an HSA plan, the out of pocket is $6,500. But the district last year contributed $2,100 to their HSA. So their total out of pocket is actually $4,400. If you're on a traditional plan, your total out of pocket for one person to max out is $1,500 on the traditional plan, plus your premiums. So when you look at a single person with one incident, their total out of pocket on a high deductible plan is $4,400. Their total out of pocket on a traditional plan is $7,800. Same thing, let's go 2 major incidents. If you go 2 major incidents for a single and family, your total out of pocket is $10,900. 2 major incidents with a traditional paying those premiums is $16,000. There isn't a case in this example where the traditional plan benefits financially an employee. If they are dead set on having the traditional plan, I would recommend taking those premiums that they want to pay, setting them aside in their HSA account. Once that's maxed out, put it in a savings account. They will get to keep that money. That is fixed costs they'll never get back. Okay. Now we'll get into a little bit of, so in these scenarios, the traditional plan costs the employee more money. It also costs the district more money. And one of the reasons it costs the district more money is because the traditional plan drives up our costs. So if you have a high deductible plan and you're a single person and you max out your plan, you're paying $4,400. If you have a traditional plan, you max it out, your total out of pocket's $1,500 plus, let's say you pay $300, $333 a month, that's $5,000. So your total out of pocket on the traditional plan is $6,500. So you're already out of the gate worse off than if you have the high deductible plan. Here's the piece that comes whipping around once we offer these plans. This is how the traditional plan performed for a full year. It's actually not FY24, it's 2024. And this is the data that we have. Obviously, the beginning of the year, our claims are lower than our budgeted claims. Our actual claims are lower. But then you can see as we get through to the end of the year, that number skyrockets. The yellow number is our actual claims. Go ahead and go to the next one. So when we were offering both plans, this is the difference in the data. This is a full year of the high deductible $5,000 plan when we were offering a traditional plan at the same time. Now, it's a bit skewed because the high deductible plan, when offered in combination with a traditional plan, your high users of health insurance are going to choose the traditional plan. So that automatically is going to cost you more. That's going to drive up the claims. And then the people that are low users of health insurance are going to opt for that high deductible plan. And that's not going to drive up our costs. So the next slide is our data so far in this year once we've made the change. You can see in July of last year, we were still paying run-out claims from having that traditional plan in July and August. And then what we start to see is we start to see a little bit of stabilization as we get to the end of the year and to the beginning of this year, where that high deductible plan is really starting to stabilize. And this is our sweet spot. This is where we want to be. This is where we can start to plan for our 5-year plan. And the more we can stick and stay the course with the high deductible plan, the better off long-term the district is going to be. I believe that to be true. There are many employees that want the 2 options. And that is your decision. It's not a decision I would like to make. But when I run these numbers, it doesn't make financial sense for the district, for the employees to offer the traditional plan. We're still going to have some meetings. We still have some bids. We're going to be getting bids from hopefully United Healthcare, Aetna, and then we're going to get a second renewal from Cigna with the offering of the traditional plan and the high deductible plan. And we'll bring those to the steering committee. We have another meeting next week on Wednesday, and then we have one on the 7th when we return. We'll go to finance committee, and then we'll be bringing the final proposal to the board for the April 16th meeting. I wanted to share a lot of this information because these were things that people have been asking about. This is questions that came up last night, have come up today, and we want to make sure we're communicating as much as possible to as many people as we can. So tomorrow morning, we'll likely send this this presentation out. It's hard to send this information without the dialogue because a lot of people don't understand it, but we're doing our best to try and communicate. Any questions?
Questions? Trustee Bosch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was at the Finance Committee meeting, Stephen, and then I attended the Zoom call last night, or whatever it was, Teams, whatever we're on, for 2 hours. And I want to thank Kristen. I want to thank all the teachers that participated in that call. I think I counted 12 pages of notes on what was being said. And I also want to point out that our consultant was on the call last night, and I want to let the board know I was there just as to listen, but I also did challenge him to provide us with information regarding who he has been contacting and getting bids from and things of that nature. Some of the concerns that I heard was that we were only dealing with Cigna, and that Cigna was an insurance company that people didn't like. The interesting information, I didn't know this, is that Kristen provided information that 95% of our claims have been dealt with by providers here locally. So
In network.
yeah, thank you. So, but there are some gaps we are identifying, which came up, I think, in 2 finance committees, which is like dermatology, and we're trying to address those things. The thing that I found that I wanted the board to be able to hear, and Stephen, I don't know if you were a part of this, but one of the most interesting things is that several years ago, the board members that have been here longer than me, you guys made a decision to step aside because we don't have our data. We were being held. I'm not going to use the legal word, but that data was being prevented from us seeing it. So that prevents us from going out and getting that health insurance. And the issue now is that we were told 12 months and we should be able to bid out. Then it was 18, then it's 2 years, then it's 3 years. And what I've said to Kristen, and Kristen was great in working with Hub, and that is to say, I think we should be asking, and I don't know if this is what we need to vote on, but probably not tonight, but as we should be getting some sort of presentation and plan on where can we get to a point where we can adequately go out and start to look at different options, which not just includes other insurance companies, but self-funded. Kristen got some information on the state fund, but I'm guessing that a lot of this is because nobody knows what we look like yet. Nobody has a real clue. And Cigna, I have to point out, is, according to this, lost $2 million between premiums and claims that have been paid. Now, I'm not crying about that personally, but I want to point out that they've gone out to get our business here and have done this, and they're going to make adjustments to this. It's going to happen. Because last time I checked, they don't lose money. But I think that challenging Hub to go out and shop this and do the best they can, but we have to. What I didn't understand, let's put it for me, is that if we go to a combined, give options with is the low traditional plan and the high deductible plan, the companies will base it off of our information on the low deductible plan. They will look at the risk associated with that, thinking that everybody is going to do that. And that's where the premiums and that's where the bid will come from. Now, I don't understand that. I don't think that's fair, but that's what's going to happen. So if what I would say to the rest of you is Kristen's done a good job, please fill in the blanks here, but is when we're looking at this, offering the low deductible plan will drive up what the costs are to us. Now, on the other side of that, we have to consider is there are teachers that want that plan. Because no matter what the numbers are, and Kristen and I had this discussion after the steering committee a little bit, and that is there are people that are risk averse. They would rather pay that premium, take it out, no matter what the numbers say, and just say, hey, I feel secure because I'm a high risk. I have claims that I'm going to make and make them on a regular basis. And I understand that. I really do. I think the hard part is going to be for us is to make that decision on this year, right now, because the decision is only a renewal right now. Next year, it should be more than that. And that's what I'd like to hear from Hub at some point in time as the consultants. When is it exactly that we can go out and start talking to the actuaries and people that can tell us what it's going to cost to self-fund, or more importantly, why we can't shop this to more people? And one thing that I didn't understand until Kristen helped me out was this Blue Cross Blue Shield has just shot us down because of their relationship with WEPT. They just said, we're not even going to bid. We're not even going to get into this party with you at all. That question is how long is that going to last? What's going to happen? I think that was, let me just, the bids. And then the other thing, I think this board, Kristen has talked about the relationship with Hub. And I do believe that, they're, based on what she said, they're giving us information, good information. But I think this board at some point in time is going to have to sit down and decide, okay, what do we want? And are they providing that? And that's a decision that I get Kristen's input and the rest of your input, but we have to sit back and say, you guys have been here longer, so you know more about who you've dealt with. But what I would say is pushing them to go out and work hard to get bids and get more information for us is the one thing I took away from yesterday's meeting, which is a big concern voiced by a lot of the teachers.
Well, and I do think to just throw out there, we have been working with Hub and we know that they've gone out and done a lot of this work. The letter from Blue Cross Blue Shield is posted for the board in exec content on this meeting, where you can see what that chain looks like and what they came back and they said maybe next year. They do seem to be, we've asked for what is the agreement with WEPT, and we see the agreement with WEPT, and they refuse to provide us with any information or details to what that agreement is. And it is what it is. We can't do that. That doesn't mean we're going to stop trying to pursue that. But I think, the long-term goal, the stability goal is to, right now we're on a level funded plan. With WEPT, we were on a fully insured plan. That's one of the reasons we couldn't get our data, is because we were on a fully insured plan. If we went with Cigna today and went with a fully insured plan, they wouldn't give us our data either, because that's what fully insured plans do. They keep that close to the chest because they don't want you to leave. So if the board, and if the time comes to get to that point where we can go to a self-insured plan, it's a possibility. Where we're at right now is really secure for the district. If we were in a self-insured plan this year, we would owe $2 million on June 30th. And so we're not ready to make that change yet. The benefit of going from a level funded plan where we are right now to what's called an unbundled plan, which would be self-insured, is that we can start to bid out the little pieces of that. So we have an aggregate stop loss provision built into our insurance. There's an individual stop loss. Right now, that whole package is being serviced by Cigna. Once you start unbundling and you go out and you're a self-insured plan, you can bid out all of those individual pieces and you start saving on the fixed cost, which is in the gray. And that's where you can start to save money. Insurance is always going to cost money. You're always trying to stabilize your claims. And that's our goal right now, to stabilize our claims, get into a comfortable spot so that then we can start to explore some of those other options to reduce our fixed costs. And we'll get there. We won't get there if we continue to make changes. I do think we're in a good spot. I think we offer a very robust compensation plan and benefits plan. It's tough because employees want more. And I wish we could offer more, but.
You know, offering family coverage is huge.
Yep.
And we do that. So, you know, last year I voted against health insurance plan based on this traditional thing still being in it. And I really do think, and I think the evidence, maybe from even before you were with us, Kristen, was that people become better health care consumers if they have skin in the game, and that's that HSA and the high deductible. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had some really great years where we had no increases. And that was all you had. There wasn't any traditional. And then we started down the road of having various options.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we had all the money in the world, I suppose that would be something to do. But if we're really just trying to maintain family coverage and, you know, full payment of our employees' coverage, then I just think there's, you know, we got to try to keep it down where we can. And that results in less choice. And sorry, but it's still a great plan. You know, but people do tend to look at, you know, going to the doctor when maybe they don't actually need it and spending their own HSA and not liking the idea of doing that when they could take a vacation on it. You know, I think it's not rocket science. So.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Just, Kristen, can you talk, because you didn't mention the idea of contributing, or making a matching contribution to the HSA and what that would cost, because we talked about that at Finance Committee.
Andrea, will you go to the front page? So one of the, or it's the, let's see, third page. Yep, this one. So as you all know, we have that $1 million in the insurance account last year that we earmarked for HSA contributions because we found savings with the demographics of how our group changed this year. We didn't have to use all of that money, but with being able to budget and looking at some of those numbers on the front page, we could still continue. I just realized that spell check changed that. It always does that to HSA. But we would still be able to do a contribution. The one-time contribution from last year didn't work. It was $2,100. It was a one-time thing. It didn't work for lots of reasons. What we would like to propose, and will be coming in April with the insurance proposal, if this is the way we go, is a matching. If we do 175 matching, every month. That equates to $2,100 for every employee a year, but it also encourages them to match. So then they end up with $4,200 if they only do the match in their account at the end of the year. And I do think that that does exactly what Trustee Mead said, is it starts to create good stewards of their health insurance and good stewards of their health. One of the other things that came forward in our renewal conversations is that Teton County is above the norm when talking about our wellness initiatives. Cigna, as part of our deal with them, they gave us $10,000 towards wellness initiatives last year. In this proposal, they're actually increasing that to $12,500. And they'll continue to increase that as long as we use that money, and we've used every dime of it for as long as we've had it. And the statistics show that our wellness is above the national norms. So our annual wellness screenings, I think it was like 58% of our staff or participants are using those. Obviously, dependents are a pretty high number. The lowest number was spouses. It was the only one that fell below the national norm. But it does create good stewards. And I think we're showing that. We're starting to see that with our data. And I understand where Trustee Bosch is coming from, where he wants to see this presentation. And I have actually asked Sean, who was on the call last night, to come and give part of this presentation at FinCom before the next meeting. Just so that you can see that they are doing the work. They have done the work. We have those metrics. We're getting that actuarial analysis. And one of the things that we're working on, and we went to Hub in December, we said we want a 5-year plan. And that came from another consultant that we had been talking to in December. They came and they sent us a big, huge presentation with all of this amazing information in it. It wasn't for our district. It was something they done for someone else trying to buy our business. But we took that to Hub and we said, we want this. We want this 5-year plan. And going through all of these pieces is we will have that actuarial analysis that shows us, okay, in 2 years, we may be able to go to a self-funded plan. We might be able to do that next year. We just have to give it the time to develop and work its way to where we need it to be, so that then we can have exactly what we planned on having when we left WEP, was more control, more say in customizing what works for the district.
More questions. What is Hub? Is Hub an independent? Are they a consultant for us, or are they a broker?
They're a broker. They're our broker of record. They do not make commissions on our insurance policy. That was a question Trustee Bosch asked. We pay a flat rate. It's a per employee per month price.
Why didn't the 2100 HSA work?
There was some issues with the way that you have to contribute to a 2100. So just the actual operational piece of how to do that didn't work, because it was in the compensation package. Any new employee that started in December got $2,100. Any employee that was here in July and quit in December got the $2,100. So there's a couple of pieces that we just want to fine tune with that a little bit. And I think it was great because we were switching to only the high deductible plan. And a lot of people came back and said that that really helped them when we made the switch. But now everybody's been on a high deductible plan. So now if we move to a monthly contribution, it makes more sense. And then if we do a matching, then that actually also helps them to max out their HSA accounts.
My third question was, what are the, you mentioned other compensation package adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
What are those?
So some of the things that we've talked about in Finance Committee are an increase to transportation wages, activities matrix. We're revising the activities matrix a little bit to simplify that for coaches, so we can recruit coaches better.
And I guess my last question was just, I'm just wondering, I guess it's more of a question to the board. It would be interesting, I know we got to make some hard decisions next month, and I'm sure we'll do a good job. I'm just wondering if we should have a meeting in August
Mhm.
when we're all calmed down,
Mhm.
budget's over. Because I feel like we have the same conversation every year
Yep.
at this time. And we concentrate on the changes we have to make, but we don't have the bigger discussions.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if August, when there's really not a lot going on, that might be a better time, maybe even a special meeting where we just spend the afternoon discussing health insurance.
Mhm.
In particularly, I think Trustee Bosch said it well. Part of our reason for breaking away from WEP was so we get our claims data, and then we could try this for a few years, and then take our claims data and see if we could be self-insured. Um, I totally agree with you. This would have been an awful year if we had done that. So I'm not real keen on heading towards self-insurance, but it would be nice to at least have a longer conversation where we're just talking more generally and we're not under the gun a little bit.
Mhm.
You know, I'm familiar because I work for the county, and the county is self-insured, and we don't use a broker. We have a insurance consultant, and they just it's a different type of deal, and they just provide, and they come on a routine basis. They come in front of the commissioners, giving information throughout the year. Um, and then we have a third-party administrator that actually administers.
Mhm.
It would just be interesting to sit down in August and have that conversation. How does self-insurance work? And so that we're all familiar with it, and have a longer conversation, or have a longer conversation about breaking away from a broker, moving toward an insurance consultant. And sometimes I feel like that you actually get a little better information. Anyway, those were my
Yeah.
four thoughts.
And I think those are all good questions, and I absolutely agree. It's definitely some conversations Heather and I have had. I had a long conversation with Sean, our broker, after the meeting yesterday. I asked him to listen in just to have a different perspective. Like, I want you to hear what our staff are saying in these meetings so that you're better prepared to help service us. And he had some great ideas, one of which was, why don't we have more regular meetings? And he's like, I'm happy to present. I'm happy to come forward. And he actually has taught me a ton about this whole process. But also, I think we need to have those conversations. And I think the fall is a great time to have that, because we're going to have 2 full years of data by July 1st. I mean, probably not on July 1st, but we'll be able to really look back and start having some of those conversations. That doesn't mean that next year we have to go out to bid for self-insured plans, but I think we can start creating the roadmap of what that looks like and having those conversations early, doing this level of education in the fall, so that then when we get to this time of the year next year, it's not trying to educate at the same time that it's trying to make a decision. And I completely agree with that.
Anybody else?
Okay, one more thing, the technology. So we are looking at a technology refresh, a 4-year refresh starting this year. We had reviewed this a little bit, and the way that the supplementary budget bill was headed in the legislative session wasn't going to afford us enough money in our foundation guarantee to move forward with this year. But now that bill has passed, we're looking at option 2. And this is also on the front page of that initial presentation that I did as the technology refresh. It's a contract of $654,000. That $700,000 number is the buyback of our current devices. And it may be a bit high, it may be a bit low. We won't know until those devices go out, they're graded, and then we get that reimbursement. So this will likely be on next month's agenda for approval. I just wanted to make sure you guys have seen this before I surprise you with it next month.
Any questions for Director Mayo?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, Educational Service Committee.
All right, Madam Chair, trustees, our goal this evening is to review our meeting summary that we had at ES committee. We went over quite a few very important topics, with more topics on the horizon. A few of those topics are some of the K-12 literacy improvements that we're currently implementing. We also went through some Tier 2 systems that we're using in all of our schools, including middle school, elementary, and high school. Also, a summary of the letters training around professional development and literacy took place in ES committee. We addressed the NAEP test, which is a national test as well. And then Stephen did an excellent job of going through some data on the interim YTOP tests that focus on ELA in grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. These are detailed topics. I think maybe the best approach is to sort of open it up. Maybe Kate or Keith or Trustee Dornan, if you have any comments or additional suggestions, we would be happy to answer any questions.
Trustee Cambry. I'll just add to it. They didn't mention it, but we actually sat around with manipulatives, and we sort of did what the kids do, and learned how to. I'm actually not sure what I learned, but there was because the only reason I say that, Megan uses these really fancy names for things that seem very simple to me.
Phoneme, grapheme, mapping.
Yes, that was what we were doing. Yes.
Segmenting and blending and
yes, that's what we were doing. I just couldn't remember. It was a long word, which was all very interesting. We talked a lot about the difficulties we're having with ELA between 5th and 6th grade. We talked about wonders and potentially getting some resources to the 6th grade, and that was a good idea, I thought, and trying to put that emphasis on the 6th grade. So that was a good conversation. That was the primary thing I took away from it, was the emphasis we're going to put on the 6th grade and trying to get them resources. I'm not supposed to say the word curriculum anymore. Megan has drilled that into me. It's I'm supposed to say the word resources. And so getting resources to the 6th grade teams.
And the alignment between 5th and 6th,
yes.
like getting those teams together to look at the standards and just have some GBC work time this summer.
So that, anyway, that's what a lot of what we talked about. Trustee Mead got to do the zap 'em, trap 'em. I can't even remember what it's called. Tap 'em, zap 'em. There's another word in there.
Tap it, map it, zap it.
Yes. But you see, I wouldn't be good at class.
The principal team has also experienced that. So
yes.
That was
Trustee.
It was a replication of what they have done before.
Madam Chair, and trustees, I am really impressed with not as much of the stuff through 5th through 6th, but the basic literacy work that's going on in our elementary schools to get everybody proficient by 3rd grade or reading well. And yeah, I think the presentation that we had, golly, made me feel so much better and made me feel like that's why our schools are doing better, is because we're really focusing on the alignment grade to grade to grade and making sure that no kid is lost, you know. Remember the old days when they had no child left behind? And, you know, that's what we do here, is try not to have kids left behind. So the Tier 1 and the Tier 2, now going into the Tier 2, I think is so important. And it was so great to learn about that. And I really, really appreciate the time you put into educating us about that, as well as, I mean, I just think it's great. I just think it's amazing. And it's why we are a fantastic school district.
And to see
Just my opinion.
To see the continuous improvement in the test scores, I think, are like, we really saw that improvement. You know, over the years, we've seen that improvement consistently in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and so to see that actualize, like all the work that's happening in the early grades to build, and then the investment in training. So I think it's a great success to see how many teachers are getting training, and we're now offering that training in middle school and high school for specialists, and it's really coming together, and people are excited and want to learn, and we're able to support that through next year. So with some grant funding. So
Madam Chair,
Trustee.
I'd like to ditto Trustee Mead's comments. I got a chance today to watch the tutoring of two young kids, and we sat behind a screen so that these young kids didn't know we were there. And there were about 10 of us. And it was an extensive discussion of all the ways teachers could maximize those kids' strengths and improve their reading. And these were long discussions this morning for each child. And so it's really true. Children are not left behind here. And I thank you all. Yeah. Thanks for giving us access to your programs and laying it out for us.
Madam Chair, Trustee Dornan, I will say a huge compliment needs to be made to Megan and her work with the principals, especially at the K-5 level. Their focus on Tier 1 teaching for all kids. We're seeing some data now that we haven't seen in a positive trend. It's it's a celebration. I think James Howell cues me up every now and then, reminds me, hey man, we got to celebrate. You know, take it easy, Chris. And he's correct. So I think it's a recognition to all the Tier 1 classroom teachers, all the interventionists, Megan and the principals. We just have to take a moment and recognize that.
Anything else? Oh, Trustee Bosch.
Madam Chair, Dr. Chris, I want to, if I'm reading this right, looking at the 6th grade ELA Y-top scores, and it looks like, if I've got this right, the proficiency, the number of kids that are proficient on the winter test, which has just been administered and we got the results, has gone up maybe 10%. Is that right? Am I reading that correct? From last year? Or is that 23, 24 winter, 24, 25 winter increased by 10%? So one, I want to applaud that, because if we look at the prior year, it had dropped off significantly at that same time, both spring and winter. So my first question is, do you know what we are doing differently there in 6th grade on that level? What has occurred or what has happened that we see that uptick, whereas before, just the year before, we had seen almost the same amount, if not more, of a drop off? Do you have an idea of what has changed or what we're doing?
Madam Chair, Trustee Bosch, a number of things I think that are playing into that. And I know Mr. Helsher could speak to it very specifically in 6th grade. At my level, I would say there is fidelity to our systems in regards to working with each other, the 6th grade team. And when I say that, we really moved away from kind of the lone ranger teacher to making sure we're doing the same thing together and helping each other out. That system piece is very important. The other piece of that is they have really raised the level of accountability on accountable talk teaching strategies that are really elevating kids' ownership in the classroom and their learning. So we're really shifting that passive learner to a much more active learner. And that's happening school-wide at the middle school. It's a very targeted focus of instruction. That's two things. I am certain there are more, but I wanted to highlight a few of those for you.
Good.
Sure.
Matt Helsher, principal of Jacksonville Middle School, Chair, Trustee Bosch. I'd also point out that last year's 6th grade that are now 7th graders, they also went up about 10 points. So that same cohort group that we were concerned about did also grow on this year's data. So if you take the same group of kids,
Yeah.
they're now last year's summative. They're now 7th graders, just took the winter interim. They grew by 10 points.
So then I might be reading this wrong because.
No, 6th grade did too.
6th grade. Oh, okay. Because this 7th grade says it dropped, but.
No.
I'm sure that I'm reading that wrong. But.
Well, they went from 56 last year on the summative to 65 in the winter interim.
Okay.
The same group of kids.
The same group of kids. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So I'll celebrate both, is what I'm saying. One other thing we did do is we have a school-wide reading program in our win time. And so kids do read for a half hour every single day. With the only exception of that is some students need a math intervention.
If you didn't hear reach, you just went.
I saw that. I saw that. And that's school-wide. And so that has been, it's just a really nice time of the day for everyone to just take a breath and just read. I subbed for a 6th grade ELA teacher last week. I walked in, I was about a minute late, and the kids already had their books out. They had them open. A couple kids do audio and text, and it was really cool to see. So that's one big change. We didn't do that last year.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Anyway, I'm hopeful that that's making a big difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Yeah, is that okay? Dr. Chris, one other thing is I see you have this broken down by the proficiency percentages. The other categories, how are we doing there? Meaning, or do we have a gap? I mean, is the number of below proficients also, like, it would seem counterintuitive, but we're missing a big portion of kids here when you're talking 56, 58, 66%. Where are those other kids going? In what direction?
Look at the decrease that we're seeing in below basic.
I'm just talking about 6th grade, for example, but my understanding there's 3 categories. Somebody else can why talk about 4 categories: basic, below proficient, all those. How are we doing? Or what I'm asking is our kids that are below proficient, are they dropping further, or are we seeing some improvement there? Because you only have one category here.
If we look at the slides that Stephen has prepped,
If you go down,
if we scroll down to show kind of that difference, like we're seeing an improvement of students who are scoring proficient or above, and we're also seeing a decrease in the number of students in the below basic.
So that's
category.
the last 2 slides.
Yes. So what you want, as Stephen has explained very well to all of us, you want to see those. You don't want to see those getting closer. You want to see those. You want to see your line of proficiency improving, and you want to see your below basic decreasing, which we are seeing.
Well, in 2 of them, we have an increase in the below basic for the last 2, but the one above that, I guess for 6th grade, it looks like we're having a decrease there, 4%, right?
yeah, it's a 4. The others it's a 1% increase, and the last one is a 2%. Yeah, you're right. There are slight increases with the red in the last 2.
Okay. So is there any thought on where or what's happening there? I know it's not a big number, but still, why do we have that many kids that are falling into that category?
That is a trend we're seeing K-12 versus just say that is one of our central K-12 focuses on our academic divide with our populations.
Okay.
Then there's a ton of reasons for that. These graphs do reflect that. What they do show, which is a positive conversation, is we are seeing a rebound significantly from 21, 22. And we're starting to see this across the board in all of our grades. But Trustee Bosch, that gap that you're talking about is one of the core focuses in all of our schools that we are seeing. It is shrinking. It is getting better. And it's tough work to attack because it's in all grades. You're just seeing it reflected here in grades 6 through 8 as well. And there's a number of reasons why we have an achievement gap, or is what it's typically called.
That's my question. So I don't know, Matt has thoughts on this, but at this level, what's with the kids that are below basic? What can we do? Is this reading program helping them and working with them, or do we need resources there? What do we need to do to help those kids?
Trustee Bosch, I mean, we've had a nagging achievement gap for many years. I think as we start to see our students exit from ELD services, have higher access testing scores, exit rates, both at the elementary and at the middle school level, I think we would start to see correlative scores in reading. If we were to disaggregate this data into ethnicity, you'll see that achievement gap that is longstanding and nagging, and that is our focus for many years of getting services to those students, whether that's a tier 2 reading program, a tier 3 reading program, more ELD services. And I'd say all of those have increased this year and in the last 2 to 3 years, especially. We have an Avid Excel program at the middle school. You heard about Avid. We focus on Avid Excel, which is for our long-term EL students or recently exited EL students. And that really is targeting students that haven't done well traditionally on White Top and have recently exited ELD with a more academic focus for that Avid Excel program. And so that's another example of trying to target a specific group that traditionally hasn't done well on White Top.
And this may be out of order, but just is there anything you need from us, or is there stuff that the board can do to help you with this and get that gap even further down? And I'm not putting you, you know what, I won't put you on the spot right now.
Let us get back to you with our list.
Okay. Do that, please. He's over there. You got plenty of, I knew it was going to cost.
I will say that, and I will say one thing, that we do also have sometimes a opportunity gap. Okay? An opportunity gap.
Yeah. What do you mean?
What do I mean? Participation rates in club sports, participation rates in middle school sports, whatever that's going to be, or the arts. And Harman, who you heard from earlier, is a soccer player for me. And I think the more kids can get involved in things at a young age, whether that's middle school sports, club sports, whatever it's going to be, so the Munger Mountain after school program, and we hook them into that way and they feel a connection to school is so powerful. And that's why I really do believe in the work that Libby has done around the After the Bell, because that makes kids just feel better about themselves and feel better about school. Once they feel good about themselves, they want to perform academically. And until they really do that, I don't know if they care about White Top so much. Okay, until they really care about their connection to the school itself and who they are as a young person. So that's one thing I think is we increase, just look at our participation rates and those kind of things, because that's what kind of hooks kids into wanting to do well, not only for themselves, but for the school.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Well said.
Awesome.
So,
all right. Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
And thank you all for your observations and participation. Let's see, it is 2 of 8. We're going at this for 2 hours. So I think maybe we should take a 7-minute break, come back at 5 after 8 to finish up the meeting, and student school board, if you would like to adjourn.
Awesome job, student school board member.
I wanted to
Yeah.
Well, we'll just see if anybody has questions. Next on the agenda is other reports, construction updates.
Evening, Madam Chair, Trustees, Deanna Harcher, Facilities Department, and the construction update for our two projects that we have going, the 24-unit employee housing project and the transportation project was attached to the leaders report. We've got Neil Zern, our project architect for the employee housing online, and we both stand for questions.
Any questions?
What's going on?
Going up. I guess one thing I do, if I may, like we are, it is going up. The roof is on, so Shaw is hosting a topping out party tomorrow at noon, and you're all welcome to come. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about that.
That's exciting. Thank you.
And where? Where?
At the job site. Bring your boots.
Yeah. I bet it's a little muddy.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Yeah. I have tomorrow, but
We will move on to public comment. Things not on tonight's agenda. If you have something you want to share with the board, please come up, state your name, and you have a 3-minute time limit. Anybody in the room for public comment? Anybody online for public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to action items. The first action item is consideration of approval of the 95% design document submittal package and notice to proceed to 100% for the new transportation facility.
thank you. Yeah, for your consideration tonight, I should say, approval of notice to proceed to 100% documents. We had a very rigorous value engineering session with the architect along with Jim Coleman and the state's consultant. And I think we made some really good adjustments. So we feel really good about moving this on to the final phase of the construction documents and get ready for bidding. And with that, I stand for questions.
Any questions for
Madam Chair? I have a curious question. Sorry, Deanna. I was reading about the heating, and there was something in there about the gas, but then also using a system to use the oil that's pulled out of the buses. What was the primary? What's the secondary system of heating? Just curious.
Thank you, Chair, Trustee Abrams. So yeah, that was early on talk about could we utilize that oil. We did rule that out in an earlier design.
Okay.
And then this last phase of the value engineering was around the heating system. They had a pressurized refrigerant system, which is an incredible system, but for a building this size, both myself and the consultants and the project team felt it didn't present the best value for the district for this type of building. So, and that had a electric backup heat source. So we went from that to a more traditional heat pump system with a gas boiler. So that's where we landed after this last round of value engineering.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any public comment? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the 95% design document submittal package and notice to proceed to 100% construction documents for the new transportation facility as presented.
Second.
Any board discussion?
Madam Chair, I don't want to waste anybody's time, but just to be consistent, I'll vote no. It's for the same reason I voted no initially. We originally got this money A few years ago, bus barn, we were unable to spend it at that time. So we got special permission to spend it just on paving the parking lot. The money was not enough to build the bus barn and way more than we needed to pave the parking lot. So we got special permission to pave the stadium and the parking area, the administration. I disagree with money that we just spent, and I know it's a few years. To me, it feels like we just spent it because I can remember sitting around discussing in detail how the parking lot was going to be designed. I don't like the idea of taking more money from the state, tearing out something that the state just gave us money to build and building over it. And so for that reason, I'll vote no. I disagree with the design. I'm sure it'll be a nice design. I just disagree with taking money that the state just gave us and then ripping it out.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Consideration to amend the Summit Consulting Group LLC special inspection contract for the 24-unit employee housing project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what this is this amendment's coming forward for two reasons. One, there was a scope gap in the original contract for stormwater inspections, which is required by the town of Jackson. So we've added that into the contract with this amendment. And the second part is due to construction logistics, they had to break up the different pours for the foundation and the slab in the parking level. It happened in additional pours than was originally estimated, so the consultant had to come out and do additional inspections. So those are the two changes to this amendment.
Any questions for her?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the Summit Consulting Group LLC Special Inspection Contract Amendment and Purchase Order not to exceed $11,540 as presented with minor modifications deemed necessary by legal counsel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Consideration of Premier Green Cleaning 2-year contract extension for the district custodial services. Hello again.
Good evening again. So in July of 2024, as you may remember, we entered a contract with Premier Green Cleaning. It was a new custodial services contract. So we elected to contract with them for 1 year with the option to extend up to 2 years. The typical rotation I go through with my service contracts is we try to bid them out competitively every 3 years. So we've had about a year under our belt with the new contractor. We're very happy and pleased with the level of service and the management of the contract, which was so important. I've received good feedback from the principals and the building users on the contract. So we're pleased with the contract and we'd like to extend for 2 years. So we reached out to Premier and worked with them and negotiated a renewal for 2 years. And I'm pleased to highlight that as part of that discussion, we've been able to bring in carpet cleaning and a more robust carpet cleaning program, which I've highlighted. And then with that, we're proposing, or they're proposing, a contract with a 1.6, a very reasonable one, we believe, 1.6% increase to the cost of the contract for this next year, and then a 2% increase for the following year. And with that, I stand for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Seeing none, public comment. No public comment. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve Premier Green Cleaning 2-year contract extension for district custodial services not to exceed $964,663 for fiscal year 25-26 and $983,955.26 for fiscal year 26-27, as presented with minor modifications deemed necessary by the legal counsel.
Second.
There's any board discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Again, just to be consistent, I voted against this, not because I'm sure Premier is doing a fine job. I just think we followed the wrong process. It was a straight up bid. The rules are when it's a straight up bid, unless you disqualify someone, and when we went through this last year, I gave multiple opportunities for the administration to disqualify. They couldn't come up with any reasons to disqualify the low bidder, but they went ahead and recommended the high bidder, and the board went with the high bidder. I think that violated our process. When we do bids, we need to go with the low bid unless you disqualify it. If somebody is not qualified, then you disqualify them. I think this should have been bid back out, or they should have issued a request for proposal. I think that's really what they were looking for, was an RFP, not a bid. And I think that just the process was incorrect. I'm sure Premier will do a fine job. I've heard good, bad. I think you hear good, bad with any cleaning contract. But I just believe in the future, if we are doing bids, unless we disqualify someone, I think you're required to go with the low bid. You can't just pick the high bid just because you want to. I disagree with the process, so I'll vote no.
Thank you. Any other? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Moving on, consideration of staffing letter of intent for 2025-2026 school year. That's it. Do I have a motion?
I can explain it if you'd like, but.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the staffing letter of intent for the 25-26 school year as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
I had a question, so not discussion.
Okay,
That's fine.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Dr. The one thing I don't understand, and I'm trying to figure out is in your summary, the memo action item, you talk about executive summary per the policy. And I've gone through that policy. What I'm trying to figure out, and people on the board, please, fellow trustees, explain this. But is this policy and what's in here built into the contracts, or is this just the policy is just referred, or is this a change to the policy? I just didn't quite understand your memo more than anything.
Thank you. Trustee and Trustee Bosch, policy GCB, that there is no change to the policy. I'm just letting you know, this is the policy, and by the state, we are required to notice by April 15th to staff if they are being non-renewed or terminated, or if they're going to be invited back. So I'm just citing the policy for your reference.
Okay, that clears it up for purposes of today. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I missed your.
That's okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the consent agenda. There are 10 items on the consent agenda. Approval of staffing considerations and reports. Approval of executive meeting minutes from February 12th, 2025. Approval of minutes from February 12th, 2025, regular meeting. Approval of the check register. Approval of Utah School for the Deaf and Blind purchase order. Approval of donor-directed gift through the Fund for Public Education. Approval of addendum to the Whole Landscaping Inc. agreement. Approval of Worthington direct purchase order for desks and chairs for Coulter Elementary School. reimbursed by parent-teacher organization, approval of board member travel, and approval of the consent agenda.
Madam Chairman, I move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any, okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Communications to the board, we had 3 letters from, that are presented in the agenda. Communications from the board, any communications from the board? Moving on, discussion, future agenda items, scheduling topics. Any items come to mind? Okay, we'll move on. Review of meeting. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you. Let's see, advanced planning. Anything we need to know? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I think so. I think it's great. And I think both. And I'm going to say, and I think we need to come up and do